quiet Sunday morning in a peaceful neighborhood, neighbors noticed something strange. The curtains hadn't moved in 3 days. No kids playing outside, no car in the driveway, no answer at the door. When police finally entered the home, what they found shook an entire community to its core. 4 people, a mother, a father, and 2 young children, all dead. No signs of forced entry, no robbery, nothing stolen, just silence. And the one person who was supposed to protect this family was the one who destroyed it. This is the story of the Needham family. The first officer stepped through the front door at 8:14 on Sunday morning. The house smelled strangely clean, almost chemical, as if someone had tried to erase something from the air itself. Family photos still hung perfectly on the walls. Toys were scattered near the living room couch. A half-finished cup of coffee sat cold on the kitchen counter. Nothing looked disturbed. Nothing looked violent. Yet only seconds later, Officer Raymond Hale stopped moving completely. Upstairs, hidden behind locked bedroom doors, the Needham family had been waiting in silence for 3 days. Jennifer Needham was found first. She lay motionless on the bedroom floor beside the bed she once shared with her husband, Mark. Investigators immediately noticed something disturbing. There were no signs of struggle anywhere in the room. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no defensive wounds visible at first glance. It looked less like a murder scene and more like someone had simply collapsed. But when the medical examiner leaned closer, tiny bruises around Jennifer's neck revealed a horrifying truth. Someone had held her down while she fought for air in complete darkness. Only a few feet away, investigators discovered the children. 8-year-old Connor and 5-year-old Ellie were found in their bedrooms tucked beneath their blankets as if someone had carefully put them to sleep. Detectives later admitted that scene haunted them more than anything else. Why would a killer cover the children after murdering them? Why make the room appear peaceful? One detective quietly asked another question nobody could answer that morning. What kind of monster kills his family and then tries to make them look comfortable afterward? Mark Needham arrived at the house 30 minutes later, after supposedly returning from an overnight work trip. The moment he stepped out of his truck, cameras from nearby reporters captured him collapsing to his knees in the driveway, screaming Jennifer's name repeatedly. Neighbors watched in tears as officers held him back from entering the house. To everyone outside, he looked exactly like a devastated husband whose entire world had just been destroyed overnight. But one investigator standing near the porch noticed something unusual immediately. Mark cried loudly, but not a single tear ever appeared on his face. Inside the kitchen, detectives began documenting the scene carefully. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere in the home. Every window remained locked from the inside. The alarm system had never been activated. Expensive electronics sat untouched in plain sight. Jennifer's wedding ring was still on her finger. Nothing about the house suggested robbery. Yet Mark insisted during his first interview that somebody must have broken in while he was away. His explanation sounded rehearsed, almost too prepared, and as detectives listened closely, his timeline started shifting in small but dangerous ways. At first, Mark claimed he had spoken to Jennifer by phone around midnight during his business trip in Cleveland. 20 minutes later, he corrected himself and said the call happened closer to 10 o'clock. Then he suddenly claimed he could not remember speaking to her at all. Detective Laura Bennett noticed his hands trembling each time details became specific. Most grieving spouses begged police for answers. Mark kept asking investigators what evidence they had already found inside the house. Why would an innocent husband care about evidence before understanding how his family died? The autopsy results made the case even darker. Jennifer had been sedated before she was killed. Traces of sleeping medication were discovered in her bloodstream, alongside bruising around her wrists. Connor and Ellie had also been drugged. Investigators realized the children likely never understood what was happening before they died. Someone wanted complete control over every second of that night. Someone planned the murders carefully. That discovery changed everything. Random intruders do not quietly sedate entire families before killing them. The murders were deeply personal, intimate, controlled, and suddenly every road pointed back toward Mark Needham. As detectives dug deeper into Mark's life, the image of the perfect husband began collapsing quickly. Financial records revealed massive debt hidden beneath years of fake stability. Credit cards were nearly maxed out. Mortgage payments had fallen behind for months. A second bank account unknown to Jennifer contained only a few $100s. Even more alarming, investigators discovered Mark had recently increased the family's life insurance coverage dramatically. Just 6 weeks before the murders, he purchased a policy worth nearly $2 million. Why would a financially desperate man suddenly insure his family for such a massive amount? Neighbors started speaking differently once investigators returned for second interviews. The friendly smiles they once remembered now felt forced in hindsight. One neighbor admitted hearing shouting from the Needham home almost every night during the previous month. Another remembered Jennifer sitting alone inside her car, crying late one evening after Mark left for work. Slowly, a hidden version of the marriage began surfacing. Jennifer had reportedly confronted Mark about missing money days before the murders. According to one close friend, she even suspected he was having an affair. But she never learned how dangerous the truth actually was. Detectives obtained Mark's phone records 3 days later. What they uncovered sent shockwaves through the investigation. During the exact hours he claimed to be driving toward Cleveland, his phone never left town. Cell tower data placed him less than 4 miles from the Needham house all night long. Even worse, several calls connected him repeatedly to an unknown number saved under a fake male contact name. Investigators traced the number to a 26-year-old waitress named Alyssa Moreno living across town. Suddenly, the case stopped looking like a mysterious home invasion and started looking like something far more terrifying. When detectives questioned Alyssa, she appeared visibly shaken before they even mentioned murder. She admitted knowing Mark for nearly 8 months. According to her, Mark told her he planned to divorce Jennifer soon because his marriage had become unbearable, but one statement chilled investigators instantly. Alyssa claimed Mark called her around 2 a.m. on the night of the murders, sounding strangely calm. He allegedly told her, "Everything will finally be over tomorrow." At the time, she thought he meant his marriage. After learning about the murders, she realized those words meant something far worse. Meanwhile, forensic investigators uncovered another devastating detail inside the Needham home. Hidden beneath trash bags in the garage, detectives found a pair of latex gloves stained with microscopic traces of Jennifer's blood. The gloves also contained fibers matching a dark blue jacket officers had seen Mark wearing during his first police interview. Suddenly, his emotional performance outside the house looked completely different to investigators. Was his grief genuine? Or had he already rehearsed every scream and every collapse before officers ever arrived? Detective Bennett privately told her partner something terrifying. "I think he expected this plan to work perfectly." Mark continued insisting he was innocent during multiple interrogations. He blamed corrupt police work, random intruders, even Jennifer's co-workers. But every explanation collapsed under evidence. Detectives confronted him with the phone records. He claimed his battery died. They confronted him with the life insurance policy. He said every responsible father buys protection for his family. But when investigators revealed Alyssa's statement, something inside Mark changed instantly. For the first time since entering the station, he stopped speaking entirely. He simply stared downward at the metal table in silence for nearly 2 minutes, and that silence frightened detectives more than any denial ever could. Late that night, Detective Bennett reviewed crime scene photographs alone, inside her office. One image kept pulling her attention back repeatedly. It showed Ellie's bedroom, exactly as officers first discovered it. Stuffed animals lined neatly across the bed, curtains closed tightly against the morning sunlight, and resting carefully beside Ellie's pillow sat a family photograph taken only weeks earlier at a county fair. Everyone in the picture smiled directly into the camera. Jennifer looked happy. The children looked safe, but Mark's expression felt strangely empty now, almost distant, as if somewhere behind that smile, the decision had already been made, long before the murders ever happened. The following morning, investigators executed a search warrant on Mark's truck parked outside the police station. Hidden beneath the rear floor mat, crime scene technicians recovered a small brown pharmacy bottle with Jennifer's fingerprints on the cap. The prescription had been filled 2 weeks earlier for sleeping medication prescribed to Jennifer after anxiety attacks. Almost every pill was missing. Detectives immediately realized somebody inside the home had easy access to the drugs used during the murders. But another discovery inside the truck disturbed them even more. Tucked deep inside the glove compartment was a handwritten list containing dates, banking information, and estimated insurance payouts beside each family member's name. Connor's name had a checkmark beside it. News of the investigation spread rapidly across the state. Television reporters camped outside the Needham house day and night, while former friends publicly defended Mark online. Many people refused to believe a father could calmly murder his own children for money and escape plans. Yet detectives working the case saw the pattern becoming clearer every hour. Mark had not snapped suddenly during one violent argument. This looked planned, calculated, cold. Every interview, every receipt, and every hidden financial document painted the same horrifying picture. The loving husband from family photographs might never have existed at all. Before sunrise, detectives finalized arrest paperwork quietly inside the station. Yet investigators feared the Needham case hid darker secrets, including evidence suggesting Mark planned the murders long before neighbors realized the smiling family beside them was collapsing. At 6:42 the next morning, detectives arrested Mark Needham inside an interrogation room that had already become familiar to him. He showed almost no reaction as officers placed handcuffs around his wrists. Detective Laura Bennett watched carefully, searching for emotion somewhere behind his exhausted eyes. But Mark only asked one question in a calm voice that immediately unsettled everyone present. "Has the media seen my children yet?" The room fell silent. Even seasoned investigators later admitted that question felt deeply wrong. Most fathers facing arrest begged to know who killed their family. Mark seemed more concerned with how the story would appear on television. Outside the station, reporters flooded the sidewalks within minutes of the arrest becoming public. News helicopters circled overhead, while national media outlets replayed family photographs of Jennifer, Connor, and Ellie repeatedly across every major network. Former neighbors who once described Mark as gentle now struggled to explain the growing horror surrounding the case. Parents across the community stopped letting their children walk alone near the Needham home. Something about the murders felt unusually disturbing to people. This was not random violence. It was calculated betrayal inside the safest place children are supposed to know their own home. Inside the interrogation room, detectives confronted Mark with the evidence piece by piece. The phone records, the insurance policies, the sleeping medication, the gloves hidden inside the garage. Still, Mark denied everything. He claimed police were twisting coincidences into a false narrative because they wanted a quick conviction. But Detective Bennett noticed something strange during every denial. Mark never once asked about Jennifer. Never once mentioned Connor or Ellie by name. It was as if his family had already become objects inside a problem he was trying to solve, rather than human beings whose lives had been destroyed forever. Then, investigators introduced the final piece of evidence. Security footage from a gas station, 20 minutes outside town, captured Mark purchasing gasoline and cleaning supplies shortly after midnight on the night of the murders. Even worse, timestamp data showed him driving back toward his neighborhood less than an hour later, despite claiming he was already traveling toward Cleveland. For the first time during questioning, visible panic crossed Mark's face. His breathing changed. Sweat formed near his temples. Detective Bennett leaned forward slowly and asked a question that stayed with everyone in the room afterward. "Did your children wake up before they died?" Mark immediately stood from his chair screaming for a lawyer. Officers restrained him as papers scattered across the table, but investigators already saw enough. Innocent people react with confusion when accused falsely. Mark reacted with terror. Detectives believed that single question had forced him to relive something he desperately wanted buried forever. After attorneys arrived, questioning stopped completely. Yet the investigation surrounding the Needham family was only beginning to reveal how carefully the murders had been planned long before that final night inside the house. Financial analysts working with investigators uncovered months of hidden preparation. Mark had secretly transferred small amounts of money into offshore accounts under fake business names. He had researched custody laws, life insurance clauses, and undetectable sedatives using his work computer late at night. Search history records revealed horrifying phrases typed repeatedly during the weeks before the murders. How long does sedative remain in bloodstream? Family annihilator psychology. Can neck bruising look accidental? Every discovery made detectives realize they were not dealing with a desperate husband acting impulsively. They were dealing with someone who had quietly studied murder like a project. The public reaction grew explosive once details leaked online. Thousands of people attended candlelight vigils for Jennifer and the children, while internet forums filled with outrage toward Mark. Yet one mystery continued haunting investigators privately. Why kill the children at all? Financial pressure explained desperation. The affair explained motive. But Connor and Ellie were innocent. Detective Bennett later admitted that question kept her awake at night. She believed the answer revealed the darkest part of Mark's psychology. He did not see his family as people anymore. He saw them as obstacles standing between him and the new life he imagined with Alyssa. Alyssa Moreno became the prosecution's most controversial witness during pretrial hearings. Defense attorneys painted her as a manipulative liar, seeking attention from the media. But privately, detectives believed she was genuinely horrified by what Mark had done. During one interview, Alyssa broke down crying while describing their final phone call. According to her, Mark sounded relieved that night, calm, peaceful even. She remembered him saying one sentence: "Investigators never forgot. Tomorrow, nobody can stop us from starting over." At the time, she thought he meant divorce papers. Now those words sounded like a confession hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, forensic psychologists studying Mark's behavior uncovered another disturbing pattern. In photographs taken during family vacations, birthdays, and holidays, Mark almost always positioned himself slightly apart from Jennifer and the children. Experts later suggested he displayed emotional detachment long before the murders occurred. Former coworkers described him as polite but strangely disconnected from genuine emotion. One colleague recalled Mark casually joking about how expensive children were only weeks before the killings. Another remembered him staring silently at family photos inside his office for several minutes, before suddenly turning them face down on his desk. As trial preparations continued, prosecutors uncovered evidence suggesting Jennifer had planned to leave Mark shortly before her death. Hidden emails recovered from her laptop revealed conversations with a divorce attorney discussing custody options and financial concerns. Jennifer reportedly feared Mark's behavior had become unpredictable during the final months of their marriage. In one email written only 4 days before the murders, she described him as emotionally empty and admitted she no longer felt safe sleeping beside him. Detectives realized Jennifer may have sensed danger approaching without understanding how close death already was. The courtroom remained packed when Mark Needham's murder trial finally began nearly 14 months later. Journalists traveled across the country to cover the proceedings while true crime documentaries prepared early production deals before testimony even started. Prosecutors opened the case with crime scene photographs showing the bedrooms exactly as officers discovered them. Several jurors reportedly cried during descriptions of Connor and Ellie being found beneath their blankets. Then prosecutors introduced the handwritten insurance payout list recovered from Mark's truck. The courtroom became completely silent once jurors learned Connor's name had been marked with a check beside it. Defense attorneys argued investigators had built the case entirely on circumstantial evidence. They claimed no witness actually saw Mark commit murder. No direct confession existed. But prosecutors slowly dismantled every argument through forensic timelines, digital records, and psychological evidence. The turning point came when Alyssa Moreno took the witness stand. Trembling visibly, she repeated Mark's chilling statement about everything being over tomorrow. Then prosecutors played voicemail recordings recovered from her phone. Jurors listened as Mark calmly discussed escaping debt and fixing the family problem forever. Several people inside the courtroom looked physically sick hearing his voice. But the most devastating testimony came from the medical examiner who performed autopsies on Jennifer and the children. According to forensic evidence, Connor briefly regained consciousness while being smothered. Bruising patterns suggested the boy struggled weakly against whoever held him down. Prosecutors argued Mark likely watched his own son realize something was terribly wrong in the final seconds of his life. The courtroom reportedly became so emotional that proceedings paused temporarily after one juror began crying uncontrollably. Even reporters covering violent crimes for decades later admitted they had rarely witnessed testimony that disturbing. Mark never testified during the trial. Throughout weeks of horrifying evidence, he sat silently beside his attorneys, showing almost no visible emotion. Sometimes he scribbled notes, sometimes he stared blankly toward the jury. But he never looked directly at photographs of Jennifer, Connor, or Ellie displayed throughout the courtroom. Detective Bennett noticed that detail repeatedly. It was as though he refused to acknowledge them anymore, almost as if admitting their humanity would force him to confront what he had truly done inside that quiet suburban house. After only 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned unanimous guilty verdicts on all counts. Mark Needham was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, Jennifer's sister delivered a statement that left the courtroom completely silent. Looking directly at Mark, she said, You didn't destroy your family in one night. You destroyed them slowly every day. You pretended to love them. Mark showed no reaction, no apology, no tears, nothing. Even as deputies escorted him away forever, his face remained disturbingly calm. Years later, the Needham house still sits empty at the end of the street. Different families considered buying it, but most changed their minds after learning what happened there. Some neighbors claim lights occasionally appear upstairs late at night despite the electricity being disconnected long ago. Others insist they sometimes hear faint laughter near the backyard swing set after midnight. Police dismiss those stories completely, yet people living nearby still avoid looking directly at the property whenever they drive past, because what happened inside that house feels bigger than ordinary murder. It feels like the death of something people desperately want to believe exists, the safety of family itself. Even now, investigators privately admit one detail still unsettles them more than anything else. The family photograph found beside Ellie's pillow was taken nearly 2 months before the murders. Yet forensic analysis later revealed Mark had placed it there intentionally after the killings. That meant after murdering Jennifer, Connor, and Ellie, he calmly walked back into his daughter's bedroom carrying a smiling memory of the family he had just erased forever. Detective Bennett later described that moment as the point where the case stopped feeling human, because only someone completely empty inside could commit murder and still carefully arrange a final photograph afterward.